Our next question, and you can have a moment to decide who you'd like to speak to it, is about electoral reform. Municipal voter turnout is at an historical low. It was pretty appalling in the last election. In 2008 it was 31%, 2005 it was 32%, 2002 it was 50%, so you can see we're going south on that. What type of, this is the question, what type of electoral reform or reforms would you champion to increase voter turnout? We'll just give you a minute to choose your people. I'll take this opportunity to mention the absence of Tim Stevenson, who wanted to be here today to join in the debate with Vision Vancouver. We all know Tim. He's been a strong advocate in the West End for many, many years. Sadly, his son-in-law passed away, and Tim had to leave town and deal with his family tragedy. So that's why Tim isn't here, but he wanted you all to know that he wanted to be here. We had him definitely as a yes, but then this awful thing happened. So if you are of the mind, let's make a little room in your prayers for Tim and his family. Thanks. RJ Aquino.
Yes, thank you. So as far as electoral reform is concerned, what we would like to do is bring back the ward system, or bring in the ward system here to Vancouver. That's one of the best ways that we can, that's one of the best ways that we can encourage voting in the city, because it'll make voting a lot more meaningful. You'll be voting for a neighbor, somebody from your community, somebody who really understands what the issues are in your community, somebody that really understands, well, the people within the community. And having a ward system will effectively bring greater and better, more accurate representation in City Hall. And if we can get that done, I believe we can also get a lot more young people involved, so they can start to pay attention, so they can see members from within their own community getting that visibility, making decisions on behalf of them for their future and for their community. So if there was something that we can do to change and increase voter participation, it's the implementation of wards as one big significant step. Thank you.
It's interesting, RJ, I mean, those of us who are a little bit older than you, of course we all want young people to come into politics. Remember that ward debate? It's come up for the voters many times in the past, so it's very interesting to see new people pick up that issue. It's always been a bone of contention in civic politics in Vancouver. Okay, and of course RJ is with COPE. Now, how about NPA? Bill McCreary. We're talking about electoral reforms to enhance and increase voter turnout. Why are people so apathetic? What can we do to change the way we elect our politicians? Bill McCreary from NPA.
I'm not sure that the NPA has an official policy in this election about electoral reform. However, I have, can I state my personal position on this, and that is that I would, first of all, I've been a park commissioner back in the 70s. We, in fact, when I was commissioner, we had the team group that I was with sponsored a civic referendum on wards, and it was turned down by a few percentage points. I think there's been either one before or after that since, and it was again the same result. So as you've said, Pia, that it is a contentious thing. However, I also know how difficult it is to get around the entire city and try and actually, if you take your job seriously, you've got to go out to meetings every night of the week practically. And if you've got daytime meetings, I've experienced this, and 2 or 3 events on the weekend you've got to go to if you're going to be a serious representative of the voters. So the at-large system has some limitations, but so do wards. So I favor a split system where you have whether it's 5 or 10 of each councillor, the numbers don't matter, but an equal number of elected people who represent at large, and an equal number that are representing wards or districts of the city. And in addition to that, I'd like to add that if not all, but some of the elected people, the at-large people would be elected specifically to sit on the Metro Council and translate. And that so we would have elected people specifically chosen by voters for to sit on those bodies instead of the current system. Thank you very much.
It's an idea, new system. I think that the ward issue was the precursor to Neighborhoods for a Sustainable Vancouver. It's kind of the same issue in a way. So with a different title and a different approach, but it's all about putting the power into the neighborhoods, I believe. So we'll ask for NSV to send up a candidate. Thank you. Nicole Benson.
Thank you. So I've been a long-time advocate of more democratic forms of education where you empower students to participate in the decision-making in their classrooms, and this usually gets students much more engaged and much more interested in learning. And I think it's the same with politics. I think we really need to encourage people to get involved in the processes, to make it easier for them, and to actually listen to them. I think when people know that their input is being listened to, it makes it much more exciting and interesting for them. So that's why I'm running with Neighborhoods for Sustainable Vancouver, because we believe in empowering communities to make decisions at the community and the city level. So there are already a lot of residents associations and neighborhood councils, and what we need to do is encourage people to get involved in these groups and to actually listen to these groups when they come to City Hall and have something to say. I think there's a lot of ways that we can do this. One really important one is to make the information very accessible, especially for young people. So maybe that means on our website, you know, when you go to the City of Vancouver website, there should be something right there that says get involved in your neighborhood group. So that it's very easy and accessible to see how do I get involved, where do I go. I also do think that we need reform to have a ward system or a mixed system. I think ideally we would have, personally I think the ideal situation is about 10 wards and 5 at large. I also think we would, or I know that NSV would poll the public on major issues. And I think, again, just as long as we get people engaged and know that when they voice their opinions, they're actually being listened to, I think it'll be much more interesting and it will encourage them to come out and vote. Right now there is such voter apathy, and I think it's because they don't feel like if they say anything, it's going to be listened to by their city councilors. So me and NSB, we're dedicated to listening to the people.
Thank you very much, Nicole. So interesting. Nobody talks about what the experiment that Toronto went through. I was actually living in Toronto when they became Metro Toronto, and they tried to lower costs to the taxpayers by combining certain services like policing and fire and so on and so forth. It'd be interesting that that's never considered in Vancouver. Not that I'm saying it should, but you know, it's interesting the issue never comes up. Anyway, let's hear from Vision Vancouver. Jeff Meggs, City Councillor. We're talking about electoral reform.
I've always favored a ward system, but there was a referendum in 2004 which settled the matter for a while decisively in favor of the at-large system. So Vision Vancouver has not called for a referendum or any particular type. Some of us are ward people, some of us are mixed at large, and like 5 perhaps senior councillors who are at large and more at wards. Some favor proportional representation. But in the meantime, between elections, we've done everything we can to try to engage people more. There were 35,000 who participated online in the Green City Action Team proposals, and there was a sold-out house for people coming to watch all of the proposals at a Pechacucha night and so on. So we're experimenting with new online and other forms of engagement between elections. And I've also asked the province to pioneer an online voting proposal for the next election. We hope we can do a pilot program this time, so people can vote online. The province wouldn't allow that. So we hope they will next time. But we've added extra voting days, everything we can to get people out, and meetings like this are good help too.
Thanks, Jeff. Because I'm not running for anything, I can say that, you know, really, the people who don't vote, who are citizens in Vancouver, shame on you. You know, I mean, people die for these freedoms. I just think personal responsibility is at the core of this, and I don't understand when people don't use their mandate. The rest of the world is trying so hard to have those kinds of freedoms. So, you know, it's interesting to hear all the ideas to encourage voters to vote. But, you know, when you get right down to it, where's the personal responsibility? I do not understand why people don't vote. Anyway, there's my little rant. Okay, who are we going to hear from now? Adrian Carr from the Green Party. We're talking about what electoral reforms would you suggest in order to increase voter turnout, which is appallingly low.
Well, yeah, in fact, I was going to start by saying, although electoral reform is usually regarded as the way in which you elect people, I think we need electoral finance reform as well. Yeah. I believe we should ban any donations from corporations, from unions, and limit the size. And I also think we should limit the amount of monies that are spent so that elections aren't won by just those who are able to get millions of dollars into the coffers. In terms of electoral reform, some of you may remember that when I was the Green Party of BC leader, as an individual, I championed a citizens' initiative for proportional representation. It's long been dear to my heart to see that we have a fair voting system at all levels in this country, in which a share of vote that comes from citizens determines the share of seats that a party gets. By doing that, you will increase voter turnout because people who fear their vote doesn't count will feel more engaged to actually vote. So I think that's very important. It's also, to me, a tragic loss that the federal Conservative government has changed finance reform there so that a vote that you cast, which used to determine at least some portion of funding to a party, is no longer the case. It's the only fair thing about our voting system nationally. In terms of actually getting more voters to vote, I think we need to look at a number of things. Online voter registration would be a good idea. We don't have it civically, we do provincially, we don't have it federally. I think it's one way to make it easier for people to ensure they're on the list. Number two, I think we should consider lowering the voting age. I'd have to look into what the laws are in terms of civic laws and whether that has to match provincially or federally. But young people, if they are involved in voting in school, are much more likely. They say at your first chance, when you're of age to vote, if you don't vote, it determines a pattern of not voting. So I think we should consider that. And finally, I think wards themselves, I'm at stop, but wards themselves are like the same at-large system we have. It doesn't necessarily mean that people think their vote is going to be more fair and won't necessarily engage them more. A proportional system is far better.
Thank you, Adrian. That's sort of interesting, lower the voting age. You know, young people are so informed these days, and we don't really provide an awful lot of guidance to all that information that's coming in. Wouldn't it be interesting if they start to learn more about politics because they're actually acquiring a mandate while they're perhaps still in school? Very interesting. Okay, we're going to go for another question now, or nope, okay? Amy Fox. Oh, and both of you are going to speak to this?
There were 3 independents who didn't speak last time. My understanding is that...
All right.
No, 2 spoke last time.
We've not spoken on this yet.
Well, you know, time's getting on, so you know, the next round we're going to have to cut the time down. So that sure.
You just about ignored the independents altogether on this.
I'll make it quick. All right, so first of all, I know a bunch of people who are finding it very difficult to vote in elections because they moved here and they're having trouble with registration. Some people legally changed their names, a lot of transgender people, and they still can't get their legal name on their voter registration, and so they are having trouble voting. They can't vouch for their friends to come and vote. That doesn't work. We need to streamline the process by which people can register to vote. So online voting registration is a very good idea. I'd also suggest introducing more civics in schools. Again, this is some of the responsibility of the school board, but as city council, we can lobby the provincial government to do things like, I don't know, have students in high school be able to elect their school trustees. Why not? You raise people into a system where they have no vote and then they graduate and you're like, well, we hope you go and vote now. Not that you know you've ever had any experience doing it. City council meetings should be mobile. They should be moving around different neighborhoods over time. We should have City Hall giving a podcast on a regular basis, and I suggest using more online forums for debating policy in advance. That way people can have a few weeks to post links and research, and then City Council can argue about it. Thank you for your time.
That's an interesting idea, Amy. Mobile City Council meetings. I like that.